Ever since the days of Frontier Elite 2, I've greatly enjoyed space sim games. There's just something captivating about flying through space no matter the task at hand, be it a delivery, taking out some pirates, or simply just going on a trading run from system to system. Even the most mundane of tasks has excitement to it as you head out into the unknown of space. However, the space sim has largely remained the same over the years. Indeed, they've come a long way in many regards, both visually and mechanically, but the formula has largely remained unchanged. But the game we're looking at today is throwing that formula out the window, and creating a space game that is quite different from that of others out there. Orbital Shipyard is a space simulation game being developed and published by indie developer Crazy Ivan 97. It released on Steam Early Access December 18, 2019 and is priced at €8.19. It is estimated to remain in Early Access until either late 2020 or early 2021. Orbital Shipyard gives a fantastic and fun showcase of the game's shipbuilding and PvE and scenario modes, all of which bring their own unique enjoyment. Despite the modes all being very early in development, the potential and promise they present makes it a game that all space sim fans should at the very least check out. At present, Orbital Shipyard offers 3 different modes of gameplay, those being Sandbox, PvE and Scenario. We'll start with Sandbox, which is the main game mode of Orbital Shipyard at the moment. In Sandbox mode, the player is able to create their very own ship from scratch, using the blocks and parts that are currently available in the game. Blocks include standard cubes, curves, diagonals and 1 or 2 other shapes. These blocks can then be used as the player sees fit, rotating them to the angle they want and shaping their own spacecraft to create the design they want to. You can also change the colour of the blocks to whatever colours you like, though at the moment a single ship can only have a total of 2 different colours to it. How big or how small the ship is entirely up to you. It can be a small frigate or it could be a massive Death Star. The choice is entirely up to you with how imaginative and creative you can be. The placement and rotating of the blocks are very simple and easy to use and to come to grips with. Placing of blocks is done by simply clicking on the grid box where you want it, and rotating the blocks is easy to understand with on-screen button instructions. This simplicity allows for almost anyone to jump into the sandbox and start building up their very own spaceship. You can start off with a simple draft of just square blocks and add the detail as you go along, or you can get right down to the nitty-gritty curvy detail of its skeleton from the very get-go. Only your imagination is the limit. While the general shaping and design of the ship are relatively simple, things do get a little more technical when it comes to the ship's movement and powering it. Along with the building blocks, there are also reactors, thrusters and turrets. Reactors are what power the ship. The more turrets, missile launchers and thrusters a ship contains, the more power it will need to function properly. The reactors need to be strategically placed out of plain sight, making it harder for enemy ships to shoot and destroy them. If enemies blow up your reactors, you'll be defenseless as you'll have no power. Ensuring they're hidden and well placed is key to the ship's design. The most complex of the building is with the thrusters, however. Generally, when you think of thrusters, you think of a few on the back along with maybe 2 on each wing, if your ship has wings. That isn't the case here. In order for a ship to move effectively, it will need thrusters on all sides. The bigger the ship's mass, the more thrusters it will need to maneuver properly. While designing your ship's appearance to your liking is important, it is equally as important to keep its reactors, size and thrusters in mind too. The bigger the ship is, the more thrusters it needs. The more turrets and thrusters it has, the more power it needs, and so on. As you're building your ship, or once completed to your liking, you can bring it for a test drive to see how it fares with controls and speed. If you're happy with it, you can consider it ready for one of the other modes. If not, you can go back and continue to tweak it, test it and fix it as you go along. The sheer amount of freedom and customization Orbital Shipyard gives you with the building is fantastic. And while my on the spot and out of my head design wouldn't be any form of inspiration, the Steam Workshop gives some incredible designs to give you an example of what is possible to build. You can also download them and play with them yourself. The downfall with the building at the moment is that it could really do with a more detailed tutorial, especially with the workings of power and thrusters. There is a very basic written tutorial on how the building works, but a more detailed one if possible will certainly help. It can at first be quite overwhelming, but until one is available, downloading one of the developers' ships from the Steam Workshop and dissecting it to see its inner design with reactors and the likes will give you enough of an example. While I'd certainly like to see a greater number of varied building blocks as development progresses, the amount of customization available already with a bit of creativity and imagination is nothing short of fantastic. The basics of the building are easy to come to grips with, but the more technical side of things can be at first a little bit overwhelming. But once you get the hang of it, there's little limit to what you could potentially create. That freedom and the fun that the system offers alone is worthy of the game's asking price. Then there is the PvE mode. In PvE, you can select any one of the ships that are in your library, be it one that you created yourself or those you downloaded from the Steam Workshop. You can then take your selected ship and enter combat against a number of AI controlled ships. The objective is to be the last ship standing. The type of ships you'll be going up against will be randomly generated from your ship library. In Orbital Shipyard, turrets and missiles work automatically and begin shooting at the target upon reaching firing range. As damage is dealt, the ship will begin to fall apart, block by block, to the targeted areas. Upon receiving enough damage, the ship will blow up. The Pve mode also contains a scoring system where you gain points for damage that is dealt to enemy ships. The more damage you deal, the higher your score will be. At present, the Pve mode is very early in development, but nevertheless has all the basic functions to make it playable. The handling of ships is a bit awkward right now, feeling quite heavy and clunky no matter the ship you use. But with that said, ships are not completely unwieldy. The scoring system, while I am at the moment not quite sure of its purpose beyond it just being there, nevertheless gives you something to aim for with a score leaderboard, if you're interested in such. It is a moderately enjoyable mode to play, allowing you to test out your ships against others in your library to see how they stand up in the heat of combat, and make changes according to its performance. Other than that, however, it currently doesn't serve much of a purpose. It appears that there will be various difficulty modes in future, but at present there's only normal difficulty. As development progresses, I'd like to see more structure behind the Pve mode. Right now it's just there, without a huge amount of purpose. I'd like it to have more significance than it just being a testing skirmish for your ship to see how they fare in combat. But as a method of giving you a taste of what combat is like in the universe of Orbital Shipyard, it certainly does the job, even if the controls need some work. Finally is Scenario Mode. This mode allows the player to set up their very own scenario and let it play out automatically as they sit back and watch. In this mode you get to choose what ships are on the battlefield and design the planet in the background. For the planet you can simply just choose a seed or have one randomly generated. Alternatively, you can change the design of the planet using slider bars, changing the large hills factor, small hills factor, continent factor and ocean factor, increasing or decreasing as you wish along with the sun's rotation on the planet. You can then choose what ships to have in your scenario, adding in as many or as few as you like. You can have an all-out every ship for itself scenario, or you can come up with teams applying specific ships to particular team numbers, allowing for 2 or more sided war. Once you're happy with the planet and the number of ships and their placement, you can simply press the play button and the scenario starts with the ships starting to blast each other. While in play you can slow down time, speed it up and even take high resolution screenshots. The idea of this mode is to create your own epic scenarios using the ships you have built and downloaded from the Steam Workshop. I guess you could say it is something like a space version of Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator, just on a much smaller scale, where you can build a scenario and watch it play out. It's a very neat idea, allowing the player to create their own videos and screenshots based on their creations. It is of course in a very early stage of development and has an awful long way to go before it is where it needs to be, but nevertheless it's a very cool idea that showcases the system very well, all the while giving the player plenty of freedom in the process. As a whole, the gameplay to Orbital Shipyard, while indeed extremely early, shows a massive amount of potential and promise, with a variety of content that will cater to many different audiences. Builders looking to customize and build up their own spaceships, face dogfighting enthusiasts, and even those who like to create their own battle scenes and record them to share with the world. There is something for everyone here. Is there anything to criticize about Orbital Shipyard at the moment? Well, I think a big frustration that players will find is definitely with the heavy and clunky controls. While it is possible to control your ship, especially if you design it well, there is still lots of room for improvement. The builder could certainly do with a more in-depth step-by-step guide as well. Perhaps something that teaches you how to build a relatively small yet effective ship that gives the player all the information they need to go about it themselves. Other than that, however, it is a fun little game. A little bit earlier in development than some gamers would like, but nevertheless a decent showcase for what is looking to becoming a very promising title. There isn't a whole lot of atmosphere to Orbital Shipyard right now due to the lack of sound effects and much in the way of ambience or even background visuals. At present there is only one music track for the game, which is during the building of your ship. It is a fitting track with plenty of bounce to it while getting the sci-fi theme across and getting you in the mood to build something awesome. After that, however, the game right now is largely mute. There are light ship engine sound effects along with very basic gunfire sounds, but other than that there isn't much to really bring an atmosphere to the game. I'd really like to see some more music tracks, perhaps some ambiences too, just to give the game more absorption to it. At the moment you are at times in need of pushing yourself to get immersed into the experience, but with some atmosphere with the help of additional music and ambience would certainly help the game draw you in more easily. There is no mistake, Orbital Shipyard is extremely early in development right now. Perhaps even a tad bit earlier than I'd personally like it to be. Regardless, it is a game that shows masses of potential, all the while giving you plenty to play around with even now. Being able to build your very own ship from scratch and then test it out in combat and even upload your creation to the Steam Workshop for others to play with is just awesome. Indeed, construction options are relatively restrictive right now, but there is still enough to play around with. With some planning, inspiration and a good bit of creativity and imagination, the ships you can potentially design are limitless. The additional modes of PvE and scenario are at a bare minimum stage of development. They nevertheless are functional and give you something more to play around with than just construction. The complete game promises multiplayer along with single player exploration modes, where players get to explore a solar system and land on planets to unlock new parts for their ship. Such additions only add to the potential that Orbital Shipyard has. The idea of creating your own ships and taking on other players' creations in the future is something for creative players to really get excited about. And if space exploration is your thing, then it is looking like the game is going to cater for that too. It is a long ways off from completion, but the sheer amount of potential and promise this game has is incredible. There's so much going on with it, and so much for different game audiences to enjoy about it. Not everything is there yet, and I feel polish of current modes, control and atmosphere should be priority before anything else is added. If what is currently in the game interests you, give Orbital Shipyard a go. There's plenty of fun to be had even this early. If not, then definitely add it to your wishlist. This is one indie early access title that is worth getting excited about and keeping on your radar.